Hey, it's Eric G from the Around the House show. Elevate your grilling game with the all-new Monty McGrill's Omni Pro series. The Eminescence 405 is packed with cutting-edge features, blending elegance with expert-level performance. 4 powerful burners plus a side-searing station deliver 60,000 BTUs of precision heat. The Clearview lid lets you keep an eye on your masterpiece without losing heat. Stay in control with the smart Bluetooth app, track your temps, set timers, and get alerts from anywhere. The LED touch panel ensures effortless monitoring, even in bright daylight. Temperature sensing lights keep you grilling anytime, anywhere. This grill is built to last, and it's also backed by a 10-year limited warranty. The Eminescence 405, where power, style, and innovation meet. Check it out and order your new grill at MontyMcGrills.com. That's MontyMcGrills.com.
Everybody stop what you're doing, please!
When it comes to remodeling and renovating your home, there is no better show on your radio. This is Around the House with Eric G.
Where's the hammer?
From your back fence to the sidewalk, Eric will tell you how to keep it all in tip-top shape while helping you save a buck while doing it. If you like DIY projects, it takes a lot of practice to get good at it, and Eric is here to guide the way.
Is it on the... Go up on the other floor. Somebody go up there and stop the hammering.
All that and more on the fastest 2 hours of home improvement radio.
These are the wrong plans. These are the old plans. Oh!
Welcome to
Stop it!
Around the House with Eric G.
Welcome to Around the House with Eric G. This is where we talk home improvement every single weekend. Thanks for joining us. I'm Eric G.
I'm Dane Votter.
Man, we got a special show ahead today, and this is not what you would call a best of show, because we're not going out to rehab or prison or anything like that.
No, we're here.
Yeah.
It's just, but if in actual terms of a best of, at the literal sense, yes, we want to share. We had a milestone sneak up on us basically this past week.
Yeah, I knew it was coming, but I just hadn't really thought about what we wanted to do until it happened.
Yeah.
So we hit 1,000 episodes on our podcast.
Of Around the House. Now,
there are many more of that with previous hosts before that. But how this number came around is one day, Handyman Bob decided, I'm going to start counting shows for my records. Well, now we just hit 1,000. And, we continued that number through because I didn't want to, as I became co-host and then host, those numbers just kept counting. And the more we did, all of a sudden, here we are at 1,000.
Well, we treated that like it was a passing of the torch. This isn't a new show. You're just carrying on the Around the House show.
Correct. And so that's where it is. And I'm sure someday that, 20 years from now, I'll be handing it off to somebody else.
Yep.
So this is just a legacy. And speaking of that, that's why we'll be talking up to one of our next highlighted shows coming up here. And so what you're going to hear today is a montage of all these different, what I think are important episodes for Around the House over the last really 6 years is where I've pulled out of. Anything that Handyman Bob and I have done and a few things like that. So there is going to be stuff I'm sure you've not heard. And I'm talking people like, well, coming up next, Kevin O'Connor from This Old House. Of course, we've got Roger Wakefield. But then we've got Clyde Lewis from Ground Zero. That's a good one. So we've got many different pieces here over the last number of years. You're even going to hear Bob's voice in a few bits of these. So this is going to be something of the Wayback Machine, but it's something you're not going to want to miss. And so we're going to do this for the next couple hours, and I hope you learn a lot because there's things in this that I learned a lot with. There's a lot of moments of me going, oh, I didn't know that. And here they are.
And there's a couple things that caught us off guard.
Absolutely, including me going toe-to-toe with an electrical contractor. You'll hear that on there. The phone call.
Yes.
That's in there as well. So enough of us talking. Let's go out to my buddy Kevin O'Connor that everyone knows from This Old House.
Yeah, happy to be here. It's been a long time coming, right?
No kidding.
Over a year maybe since we bumped into each other?
Yeah, we ran into each other at actually at the International Building Show at that seminar. I was up there with
Mark teaching, and you popped in and we talked about it for nearly a year.
Never miss an opportunity to harass Mark. That's my rule.
That's my new rule too. I harass him a lot, and he's a good guy to tease.
He is. He's a good guy all around.
Awesome. Well, here's the thing. You've been the host of This Old House longer than anybody. You've beaten out Bob Vila and Steve Thomas. What's it like changing from being an episode where you're taking off wallpaper and now you're the host?
Well, it wasn't a race, so I'm not sure I beat them, but I definitely have lasted longer than they did, although they both, chose to go on to other things. Despite having served as host longer than those two, I'm still very much the new guy because the fellas that I work with have been there since 1979, so they still got 25 years on me. So, and trust me, they never let me forget. But the short answer to what's it like is it was certainly a wild ride to begin with. It came completely out of the blue. One day working at the bank during the day, and then my wife and I working on the house at night and weekends, like a lot of young couples do when they buy their first house, to literally getting a phone call and someone saying, "You want to be the host of This Old House and Ask This Old House?" That was definitely a shock. It seems like forever ago.
Yeah.
And I have to say the transition was pretty smooth, and that's a compliment to the guys. Like, they immediately said, all right, he's the new kid, he's the host, he's part of the family, and we just moved right on. So it was a pretty smooth transition. I do have to actually, I get the question a lot. People are like, how'd you get the job? And every once in a while I stop myself when I tell it. I'm like, man, that's messed up. That doesn't make any sense.
Well, it's not like you came from construction or anything like that. You were in corporate lending and loved old houses, and then all of a sudden you're the host.
Yeah, although, if you think about it, it's a relatively good fit, right? Because we've got experts, right? We've got all the experts we need working for us, Norm, Tom, Rich, Roger. We've got access to all those experts. The host really shouldn't be an expert. My job is to ask those guys questions, hopefully sort of be a proxy for the viewer. Who's the homeowner? What are they thinking? And what would they ask Norm if they had a half hour of his time? So I don't think they were looking for somebody with a construction background anyway. I think they were looking for somebody who was a homeowner, intrepid enough to do it themselves and to get into a bind, because that's kind of the way we see most of our audience, sort of really interested, really passionate, not professionals who are going to give it a try, and this is what's going to happen when they do.
You guys have influenced so many people along the way, and I say that as a group. I was 11, and my mom and dad jumped onto the he got a hold of the TV station somehow out there and shipped me the plans for that Newton house. It was house number 2, I think, in this theory. And I was 11 years old following the plans, which I think led me into kitchen and bath design and got me into this career. It's amazing how many people that This Old House has influenced over the years.
Yeah, can you imagine today getting some paper plans to follow along with a TV show?
Right?
That doesn't make any sense. It also speaks to sort of how much has changed between 1979 or early 80s and now. But that being said, I didn't have the plans sent to me by my dad, but I kind of did the same thing. I grew up as a little kid watching the show. I watched it with my brothers. I watched it with my dad. And then, when I got to choose my own shows in college and stuff, I fought my roommates for the clicker so I could watch that instead of the Red Sox or something. And there's a lot of people out there who did that, grew up, and it's probably the number one consistent thing I hear from folks when they come up to me and the other guys, which is, I grew up watching you. You've inspired me to, tackle some projects myself. You've inspired me to renovate my home. A lot of people say, hey, it was because of you guys that I got into the trades. And I got to say, it feels good to hear it, but all of that cred, goes to the other guys, because those are the ones who started it. Those are the ones that those people are talking about. I don't think I've inspired anyone to go into the trades, but Tom Silva, he's probably inspired millions of people to go into the trades, or at least millions of homeowners to go out and try something themselves.
Well, it's funny. The entire crew is considered royalty for home improvement out there, because this is before Home and Garden TV. This was a show on public broadcasting that you didn't see. I can't think of another home improvement show at its time that was
that started out this way, and it's created television channels.
Yeah, I mean, I think it is unquestionably the granddad of the whole thing. There's a remarkable story about the guy who started it, Russ Morash, who was a producer at the local Boston PBS station, WGBH. And he had been producing a bunch of shows. And one of his first big shows that they asked him to produce was a cooking show where they wanted to show people sort of how to cook. And it was Julia Child, the French chef.
Wow.
Which is a pretty good place to start. But, from there, he went on to then start This Old House, the New Yankee Workshop, Victory Garden, eventually Ask This Old House. He was just recently, we were with him in Los Angeles a year and a half ago, where we received the Lifetime Achievement Award from the Emmys. And I think it was a good recognition and appropriate one, because he really is kind of the father of how-to television. And I was very fortunate to have worked with him when I first started. He's still around. He still calls us up and tells us what idiots we are. We always count on a producer to tell you what you're doing wrong.
Nice.
But I had the privilege of working with him early on when I got started, after he had been doing it for 25 years or so. And his passion for it came from his own curiosity. Like, he wasn't a professional gardener or a cook or a carpenter, but he was interested in all of those things, as I think a lot of us are. And he dove in, and he sort of created the show that way, which was sort of, what would you do if you had the experts in your house? What would you do if you could ask Julia Child, half hour's worth of questions, or Norm or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And we've tried to sort of keep that curiosity going, to make sure that we don't gloss over stuff, that we sort of stop at the choke points. We think of him often as we make the show, trying to keep it going.
Now that is home improvement royalty right there, with all the guys from This Old House. Now, you're going to be able to catch all these interviews. We've put these into a collection that'll be up on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all the places, including aroundthehouseonline.com. So you can hear all these as they occurred back in history. We'll have that all collected right back together. Coming up next, we've got so much more. You don't want to lose this one. It's a big one, just as soon as Around the House returns.
Hey everybody, it's JT from Barbecue Nation. If you're listening to Around the House, you can also hear Barbecue Nation on this platform. That's Barbecue Nation, where we talk about outdoor cooking and fun.
Welcome back to Around the House with Eric G. This is where we talk home improvement every weekend. One of my favorite interviews in the last 1,000 episodes was Jessi Combs, the late Jessi Combs. Let's run out to Jessi.
Welcome, Jessi, to Around the House.
Hey, guys. Thanks for having me.
No problem. No problem. Thanks for coming on with us. Yeah, we've actually got you on in the studio. They're playing one of the old Velocity right now, one of the old overhaulings with Jay Leno on that Lotus it looked like you guys were working on back then.
Oh, that Lotus was so much work was put into that car. Every single body line was changed on that car.
Come on, when you're working with Chip Foose, what do you expect?
Yeah, well, and we also had some really great fiberglass guys on our team at that time, and it was really amazing to see them work. I mean, a fiberglass, if I look at it, I just start itching. But
I was just going to say, everybody was itching.
Masters.
Everybody was itching for weeks, I bet.
Yes, for weeks and weeks, and that car took us longer than we'd like to admit. Not going to lie.
No kidding. Well, hey, let's get back to talking about the trades and kind of your roots, and I'd love to talk a little bit about kind of how you got started and what got you into kind of before the TV career into fabricating and all the stuff you were doing back then.
Well, I grew up in the Black Hills of South Dakota, and if anybody's ever been there, they know it's obviously beautiful, but it's also far, far away from any major city. So we grew up with the mentality of, if it's broke, you got to fix it, because you couldn't just go and pick up a replacement part right around the corner, especially way back then. So that's the way it was. My dad's a mechanical engineer. My mom is pretty handy and very independent. She's got, balls the size of Texas. And And then when it comes to racing as well, my great-grandmother used to be, she was very independent, and there's wonderful news articles with her in it about how she ran over some guy that tried to steal her car at the train tracks, and she would travel around the world and put on numerous amount of miles on cloth-rated tires that, she was very well known for beyond her musical talents, but for just her adventures that she would go through. So you put all of that together and you kind of get a product of me, and in the environment of which I grew up, I didn't know that there was anything different.
Awesome. And so you ended up, did you take stuff through school as far as, did you go to, take the metal shop stuff through school, or were you just doing that on your own?
Well, yeah, in high school, our shop class involved welding class. There was also a welding class, but I never actually took that in high school. I didn't really feel like I needed to. And, of course, back then, a girl getting into a welding class was not acceptable, and it still is really not that thought of even today. So that was never anything that was in my head. But in shop class, I excelled. And then when I graduated high school, I was well on my way to go to interior design. For many years, I wanted to be an architect.
Nice.
And then the amount of schooling did not interest me. As good of a student as I am, I just can't sit for very long. So I ended up changing it about 5 years after I graduated and realized that I really loved working on cars. And so I went to Wyotech in Laramie, Wyoming, and got a degree in custom automotive fabrication.
Yeah, that is kind of the school of all schools, from my understanding, at least. And I know people that have gone there, and boy, they sure know how to educate people.
They do, and they do it in a manner that's quick, so you can go to school and get your basics within 9 months, and then they have all sorts of other classes that you can take. So I went to school for 15 months. I did paint and body, and then I went on to do chassis fabrication, street rod fabrication, high-performance engines, and trim and upholstery.
Nice. And in case you're just tuning in and hearing this incredible woman talking about all these great things that she's done, we're talking to Jessi Combs. And Eric, very quickly, in case people have just tuned in, bring them up to speed. Who is Jessi Combs?
Oh, yeah. For you just joining us out there, Jessi is, she's all over the automotive shows on multiple networks. You'll see her on, Jessi, you were even on Mythbusters, if I remember correctly, weren't you?
Yeah, that didn't really have anything much to do with automotive. I mean, granted, they did give me some automotive shows so they could show my skills off, but it's to me, the way I looked at it is it was a build show, because we had to do our research, we had to collect our data, and we had to continuously build things to be able to get our results.
Now, Did you get to blow something up?
Well, the most things that we got to, do you remember the Gorn cannon?
Oh, yeah.
On Star Trek. Okay, so we reenacted the Gorn cannon to see if it would actually work with bamboo and the gunpowder and all of that stuff, like what Captain Kirk would actually find on the planet. But it was a bust because it blew up before it even exited the
Nice. Yeah, I remember I caught wind of you when you were kind of in the early days of the Extreme 4x4 show.
Oh, yeah. And, it was overhauling even before that.
Yeah, and I'd seen you on that, too. But that's kind of where, you had your role on overhauling, but you really kind of got to play hard with Extreme 4x4.
Yeah, Extreme 4x4, it was such a great stepping stone as far as showing people, how much fabrication goes into off-roading. And to be honest with you, so many people who weren't into off-roading could watch the show because there were so many fab skills that we were teaching and so many parts that we were showing them that it could be used across the board with really any sort of automotive field.
You know what, Jessi? I think with all of these wonderful skills that you're talking about and that you demonstrate on television all the time, we need to touch on why it's so important, because it's not just building cars. It's not just racing cars across the flats. It's not all of the things that they see you doing on television. Those fab skills are important to learn in a whole genre of things, in mechanical engineering, in manufacturing, even in home construction. Touch on that a little bit and how your skills could translate into so many different industries.
Well, I mean, I definitely have to say that I wouldn't be where I am today without a skill set, because if they wanted to hire a cute girl on television, they could have found somebody that was cuter than me. If they wanted to find somebody
I beg to differ with you.
I don't know about that.
But if they wanted to find somebody who could speak more eloquently than I do, they definitely could have found somebody else who has a way better vocabulary than I do. So my skill set is definitely the thing that launched me into the next realm, because if I didn't have that, I wouldn't have been able to get hired. And it was the same thing for Mythbusters. When we were auditioning for Mythbusters, I killed it in the skills section because I had the skills. I could, like, we did a welding thing and they gave us 30 minutes and I was done in 7.
Rest in peace, Jessi. We all miss you. Round the House will return just after these important messages.
Hey, this is Farewell Angelina, and you're listening to Around the House with Eric G.
It goes down so smooth. Ooh, it makes me want to pour gold in this glass, 'cause that color red never looks so good, so good. Let's pour gold in this glass, 'cause that color red never looks so good.
Welcome back to Around the House with Eric G. This is where we talk home improvement every single weekend. I'm Eric G.
I'm Dane Vodder.
Hey, give us a call in the studio. We're not going to put you in this week, but I want to answer your home improvement questions at 971-233-8992. That's 971-233-8992. So this is our kind of 1,000th episode celebration. This is not just a regular best of show. We're actually in this weekend just doing the show normally, but highlighting some of our favorite interviews that we've done over the last number of years to make up that 1,000 episodes.
Well, we've had a lot of stations join us over the last couple of years that maybe never got to hear this episode, these segments when they first aired.
And the cool part is, if you've got a friend you want to share the show to, this is the one to do, because now you've kind of got a best of Around the House without it being a best of show that's just a recycled show from 2 weeks ago. No, this is literally
a true
taste of all the stuff that's happening with this show. Just like coming up in a second here, we've got David Applebaum, and he's going to be talking about his design work for Frank Sinatra. And this is an amazing one. Who doesn't like Frank Sinatra?
A lot of fun.
Oh, so much fun. Let's just get back out to David Applebaum.
So I'm meeting with Barbara, who I spent time with, and it was like the humidity had changed in the room. And I look at her and I mouth, "Is he behind me?" And she just nods. And so I stand up and I turn around and there he is. And I'd only met him briefly once before, and there he is in his silk pajamas. It's like 10 o'clock in the morning, silk pajamas, cashmere robe. And he's got this expression on his face like, "What are you doing to my wife?"
Yep.
"Who are you?" And so I stand up and say, "Hi, David Applebaum," and Barbara jumps up and says, "You remember David? He did your train room." And he's like, "Oh, big fan." Maybe he didn't really remember me, and he just knew that if he said big fan, we would melt.
Yeah.
So yeah, I melted. And he was like, and then he said, "How long have you been here?" I said, "I don't know, 10 minutes. He said, "Are you kidding? You don't have any kind of refreshment?" I'm not that kind of host. "David, can I get you a drink?" It was 10 o'clock in the morning. He said, "I'd like some water." And he looked so angry. He turned to me, and he just says, "David, I thought you were a really good architect. Don't you know what water does? It rots wood and it rusts metal. I can't in good conscience give you a water if I'm supposed to be a good host. I'll ask you again, can I get you a drink?"
Yes,
and like
sir.
I just started puberty, I said, "Scotch."
Exactly.
And I don't like scotch, but it was all I could think of. And so he walks me over to the bar, and then I realized this is what this man cares about: his trains and his bar. Not because he's a lush, but because he is a host. He is a generous, warm man who cares about people. And one of the ways that he shows it is by offering a beverage. And so while he pours himself a bourbon, which, like the V8 commercial, "Oh, I could have had a bourbon."
Yes.
he pours me. He starts pouring this tall glass of scotch. Glug, glug, glug. Would you like some water with that? Yes. Yes. There's like 7 inches of scotch and a half of an inch of water. I do not remember the rest of the meeting at all. But he was great and she was great, and we did this wonderful. I do remember. I do remember a little bit of like the next 30 minutes because I remember saying, "So, what's your budget?" And he just kind of looked up into the sky and said, "Do you hear that?" I said, "Hear what? Is there a helicopter around?"
Yeah.
I said, "No, somewhere around the world they're playing one of my songs. Let's not worry about the budget today."
Oh, that's beautiful.
So, and I thought, oh boy, no budget, first time ever. I'm just starting, and I've got Frank Sinatra as a client with no budget. And that was when he started forgetting his lines.
Ooh, yeah.
He said, look, if I need money, I'll just do another gig in Vegas, no problem. And then he started forgetting the words to his songs. I don't know if you know this, but if you go to concerts now, you'll see those teleprompters on the bottom that have all the words to the songs.
Yeah, a lot of artists
Frank
do that
Sinatra
these days.
in Vegas was the first person to ever use that.
If you watch Aerosmith do their thing down in Vegas right now, they do the same thing. So it's common. But still, he was the first.
We talked when my son was 9. He was such a good guitar player. We were like hanging out with all of these bands, and we actually went on tour with Korn for a while. And so we're backstage, and I was looking at this teleprompter that JD is using to see his words, and I'm thinking, do I tell him that he should thank Frank Sinatra for that?
No kidding.
Anyway, that's so awesome. Yeah, Frank was great. So smart. The smartest client I've ever had in my life. My only regret is after we did the beach house, they called me to do some work on the house in Beverly Hills because, he was starting to feel the effects. And my son was just born. So this was, 22 years ago. Yeah. And I said, would you do me a favor? I said, I've never asked for anything for you in my life. Would you please autograph a picture for my son and just say something unique and special? Yeah. And he said, yes. And then he was called out by his nurse. And so he said, I promise I will do this. And he passed away 2 weeks later.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Yep. That's a bummer. But man, such great memories.
Well, that's that isn't. Those aren't my only Frank Sinatra stories.
Oh, I know. Let's hear some more of those if you got.
Okay, so
let's keep going on these.
Beach
I like
house.
These. Yeah.
The beach house, like I said, the most important thing I could tell was the bar. He basically said, Barbara, this is your house to decide anything you want. I'm happy with anything you choose. I'm sure it'll be lovely. Just let me have some input on the bar. So knowing that, I arranged for us as the house was framed up and the sheetrock was going up, let's actually take the bar design and have him come and check it out. Because as you know, people don't understand drawings very well.
They don't.
So I build a lot of models. That's the way I get a lot of my ideas because I'm a very three-dimensional thinker. I think most architects have what I call an edifice complex. They think about how the elevation looks on a postcard, but not how it fits in space and how you walk through it. I've told you before, I don't think doorknobs are doorknobs. They're the building shaking your hand and welcoming you to the next space. So this is kind of the way I work with all this. So knowing this was important to him, it's like I had the contractor have 2x4s, 2x6s, 4x8s, 4x12s, concrete blocks, bricks, sawhorses, plywood, and we mocked up the bar that I had drawn. Yep. And the limousine pulls up and the trunk pops out and he pulls out 2 bar stools, 3 suitcases full of like glasses and things like that, and 2 coolers that had ice and ice buckets and things like that. And he actually really and truly set up his bar on the plywood with champagne and white wine for Barbara and cocktail glasses and Jack Daniels and vodka. for and ice and all that. And so he would make drinks, and then he'd turn around, he'd lean on the bar, and he'd sit on the bar stool and say higher, lower, wider, shallower. I mean,
that is awesome.
I have never ever, and he got me drunk on that first meeting, and that was not the first time he got me drunk. I never saw that man drunk.
No,
except for that day. When it was all over, thank God they had a driver. They would put everything back in the car, and they drive off, and the contractor says, "Good meeting." And I say, "Yeah, did he approve any of those?"
Exactly.
And he says, "No, what do we do?" I said, "Let's just go with the first one." He was happy with that. I don't think I never heard a complaint.
No, he was happy. Well, but here's the thing, though. You, as the architect, got to stand there and watch his thought process of how he needed to use that space. And that's actually the most valuable part of that, coming from the design community that I am. Getting to see that how his brain works on how that needs to go is brilliant.
That very first meeting where he said, when he said, "What kind of architect are you? You don't know what damaged water does." That actually was the datum that I used as my fulcrum for every decision that I made, where I would think, what is he thinking? I mean, that was such an important meeting by accident.
What a happy accident. I mean, really, man. I mean, really, to be helping out Frank Sinatra.
Who else has a story like that?
Yeah, I was designing Frank Sinatra's house, and I love David Applebaum. I've been to his house down in California. We've had cocktails. We talk weekly on social media. A great guy. Hey, if you're listening to the show out there, this is only segment 3 of 4 of the first hour. We've got another hour of the show ahead.
That was slightly confusing. This is segment 3 of 8.
There we go. Thank you. Thanks. That's why we have a producer in here to make sure that we actually tell the story correctly. But no, technically correct.
Basically, what we're saying is, if you only get an hour of the show, we'd like to get you over onto our Facebook, Instagram, Around the House Online. That's where you'll find our podcast, and the second hour of the show, our best stuff.
Absolutely. So you can catch all this right there, and there's about 17 different ways you can catch it as a podcast. We come back. We got so much more just as soon as Around the House returns. Welcome back to Around the House there, G. I hope you're enjoying the show today. This is not a best of show. This is a celebration of our 1,000th episode, which was last weekend. And I wanted to put together something that showed some of the different episodes that we have enjoyed doing over the last, 1,000 episodes. Here's one right here. He's just like he's had a central casting, but he's the real deal. Lt Mike Ciampo from the New York Fire Department. Let's get back out to Mike. Well, it's funny because, and we had a call with, our mutual friend Cheryl here in the last week or two, and you and I started going off the deep end, and she started laughing after she introduced us. But it's funny, in the Northwest here where I live, and out there in the, in the East where you live, vinyl siding is one of those things that I don't see as much out here as I used to, but I know it's super hot out there. And, man, that stuff, you get it warm next to a barbecue and you can have a heck of a mess.
Very, very prevalent here on the East Coast. And I would actually even say all up and down the East Coast, south to north, is very easy to install. They wrap the building and we just put our vinyl siding on. And, and I was thinking about this after we hung up. It's very prevalent, and I can count, I know numerous departments here on the East Coast in the area I grew up in. Just take a rainy day. People are more prevalent with the gas grill that's on wheels to pull it closer to their house, or they have a bunch of furniture on their deck, and they may light it, go inside, or, they cooked on it, and they say, I'm going to burn the grease off, and they leave it on. Maybe they fall asleep on the sofa. Well, we also saw it with chimeneas out on the decks. People, I just burn a little clay chimenea. Well, it heats up the vinyl siding, gets it to its ignition point, it melts, whatever. But the fire will travel right upside the side of the house, and with the vinyl soffits, they just melt. And now we have a raging fire that can go right into the attic space. And to be honest with you, nobody has smoke detectors really up in their attics because it's a non-livable space.
Sure.
And so you could have a raging fire. And I know in my hometown where I grew up, they pulled up one night. Thank God the police officer saw the glow in the sky, and he responded there. And he kicked the door in and got the people out. They were luckily with the sheetrock in their bedrooms, but they were still asleep because the smoke detectors wouldn't go off due to the fire all in the attic.
Yeah, it's all sealed off. You got drywall up there that's keeping the fire on the side that, and it just hasn't, it's vented out enough. There's no smoke coming down through stuff. And if it's just, you're solid.
Right. So with the gable vent. So, I mean, unfortunately it does unbelievable structural damage, and to just jump into a point there where we're fearful as firefighters, and not to jump to a different subject, but we have the fire entering through the vinyl soffit now, and it extends very rapid. And and I'm not going to put you on a spot here, Eric, but think about your own attic right now, right?
Yeah.
I mean, mine's a storage space for kids' toys, old playpens in case you ever have the grandchildren, and we got to save a couple boxes for presents, and storage. But add that fire load, and a lot of these newer houses, even if they only have a center pull down attic or small scuttle in a closet, people are going to store material out of their way. They're going to find a way to put material in their attic, even if they have trusses up there. Now we add that fire load to lightweight trusses, and we could have a real problem if firefighters or civilians are trapped on a second floor or we're entering. We could have an earlier collapse of the structure. So the vinyl siding is like a two-sided coin for us,
Well, and then let's talk about what you were just talking about there. Let's dive into this for a minute, because you and I were talking about this as well. So you got the trusses up there. Everything's 24 inches on center. It's 2x4s. You've got little metal bracket pieces that are pressed into the top, 3/8 of that 2x4 holding it together. That ceiling was never engineered for load of the 700 pounds to 1,000 pounds of storage stuff you put up there. And then you get a fire that weakens those connections, and then you put somebody on the roof. I see where the disaster starts to happen from a firefighter point of view.
Right. Now, before we jump into that, and a lot of states have adopted codes where they have put a truss symbol on the front of a structural. That's more commercial.
Yep.
I don't really know of anybody yet that's doing it on a residential. Maybe one of our listeners in an area knows of that. There was... I'm involved with the fire service, so I hear a lot. I know a lot of people from codes to fire protection engineers, and one town wanted the new construction to have a little symbol on their mailboxes on the side of the road that was like a little truss, so that they would know that the home was trussed compared to regular structural lumber. But, back to those gang nails, or like the stamped metal sheet, the gusset plates.
Yep.
We spoke about it before. I understand it's easy to build the trusses, and there's a place not far from where I live that makes them. And I know they probably lay them out on big tables, and they're in jigs so that they press those nailers in there. As a fire service, we don't understand when they have them flat and it's being pressed in, maybe with an air or hydraulic machine, why they just can't put 4 screws in a gusset plate and maybe get it to hold a little bit longer for us, we have some unbelievable legends in the fire service that wrote books on building construction and collapse of burning buildings. And if you ever mention Brannigan or Dunn to firefighters, they would turn their head immediately. And we were always taught the 20-minute rule for a building collapse. If we pulled up and we have 20 minutes and we haven't knocked down this building fire that's in the walls, structural members are affected. Today, we're saying 4 to 7 minutes we could have a collapse on scene. And, it's these gusset plates are dangerous to us. We'd love for the industry to get them to bite a little bit more. I spoke to a lieutenant this morning from the FDNY. We were BSing about it, and I told him about this wonderful show I was getting invited to, and I was looking forward to it. And, we said, he said, well, yeah, 4 screws on each side. I said, yeah, but would they have to be in different patterns? Maybe 4 on the inside on one side and 4 opposite on the outside. So, the engineers are going to have to tell us where the strength is with those gusset plates when they put the screws in. But that's
exactly,
I don't want to bring this subject down, but if you do talk to, it doesn't matter if paid or career firefighters, when I mention this, our line of duty death rate is horrible.
Sure.
If you just Google lightweight construction collapse and firefighter deaths, it's just from the 90s, losing 4 firefighters in Pennsylvania, up into the 2000s. We actually just had one outside of Howard County, Maryland, and involved a career firefighter where the flooring went, in the first floor. So, it's a prevalent issue to firefighters.
More of Around the House when we return. Hey, it's Eric G. from Around the House. Are you planning a decking or siding project this year? If you are, you've got to check out my friends at Millboard. Millboard is a completely different kind of composite decking and cladding that enhances outdoor spaces with enduring distinction. Hand-molded from the finest oak, it realistically mimics the natural grain and color of premium hardwood. If you're looking for something that doesn't look like plastic and instead real wood, check out millboard.com. Make sure and check out that interview we did just a few weeks back. That's millboard.com.